They're okay. You are
Okay, fine.
Fine.
Well, hello. From very cold New York to Torino, where it's probably quite beautiful. That's just one of the disappointments that I'm not able to be there rather than here, and especially I guess because it is a conference in some sense devoted to Brillo, and I take it you're really not deeply interested in scouring pads, but in the celebrated Brillo box of Andy Warhol, and I was in on that, what one might call the age of Brillo, when it was first shown at the Stable Gallery on East 74th Street here in Manhattan, and it was an extraordinary experience. The walking into the Stable Gallery, which was in some ways one of the most elegant of New York galleries, and to see it looked like a supermarket. It was an extraordinary transformation, uh, uh, and I'll talk a little bit about it because um, uh, the Stable Gallery got its name from what had been a stable, actually, where horses were kept, but uh, that original gallery had been torn down. The original um, uh, building, the stable, was torn down for an apartment house on 57th Street and 7th Avenue. And the woman who owned the gallery, rather handsome woman, Eleanor Ward, had moved it over to East 74th Street. It was still called the gallery, still called the stable, and because it showed uh, a group of the most advanced artists in New York at that time. The Andy had one show already at the Stable Gallery, and for the second show he conceived of the idea of wall, a wall that would be very uh, uh, almost surrealistic in the sense in which it would be exact, almost photographic, and that it in strict perspective. His vision was that of a supermarket, and he wanted to have a number of boxes, cartons, that would form a wall in sharp perspective. The suggestion was that he follow the practice of Marcel Duchamp and use just the actual ready-made cardboard cartons that he could have been given by any supermarket at the time. But those cartons did not have the exact quality that he wanted. He wanted a very sharp perspective, and he felt that the cartons that were made of corrugated cardboard, which is what these cartons, that was their natural material, that was not sharp enough. He wanted boxes that had sharp corners and sharp edges. And so he realized that he was going to have to make them himself that is to say, have them fabricated by a carpenter, a cabinet maker, and they should be of pretty much the same shape as the cartons themselves. There were 6 to 8 commercial cartons in the show. He had the boxes fabricated, as we say, had them fabricated by cabinet maker, and then he these boxes were to be, there were the box that held packages of cornflakes, a carton that held Del Monte peach halves, a carton that held Heinz tomato soup, and the Brillo box, of course, which held boxes of Brillo. Or at least that was the outside pattern that he was going to have to impose on the box itself. Once the cartons were fabricated, he had photographic silkscreen stencils made, working with his assistants, and he had them made by, first of all, buying some cardboard boxes and photographing those, and then making what in effect his assistant Gerard Malanga said, what in effect he made was three-dimensional photographs. The Brillo box was a three-dimensional photograph. And then he and his assistants stenciled on the photographically generated pattern and squeezed the paint through, and they did it at his new studio, which was called the Factory, in large measure because A, it had been a manufacturing loft, and B, they did it as so. They were factory workers, so there was a kind of assembly line. He and Gerard Malanga and his original assistant, Nathan Goldstein, and it took them a long time to make them. They were made out on the floor. There was also a strange man named Billy Lineage, who painted them in the first instance by white Liquitex, and then they'd stencil it on. I had an interesting thought, or at least it was pretty interesting for me, that that kind of sharp wall is the kind of wall that Andy must have seen in Italian paintings, Italian futurists, and particularly Italian what's called arte metafisica paintings that were done by Giorgio de Chirico. Actually, de Chirico began to paint what were the arte metafisica in Turin. De Chirico had studied philosophy, as it turns out, and he loved de Chirico. He loved the Torino partly because the perspective of the streets allowed him to paint in, and partly because Nietzsche lived and died in Torino, and he'd studied Nietzsche. He really loved the philosophy of Nietzsche, and so he settled there in painting. And it struck me that if that's true, well, if that's the provenance of these boxes that Andy became fairly famous for,